All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're all becoming skin detectives. Seriously, we're going to learn how to read all the little clues our skin is giving us about our overall health. Think of this as your very own handbook for becoming a top-notch health investigator. So let me ask you something. You've got about 20 square feet of skin covering your body. It's huge, but do you actually know how to read the clues it's sending you, like every single day? Your skin is your body's front line, and it's constantly sending out signals. The real mystery isn't what it's saying, it's whether we're paying enough attention to listen. Okay, before we dive into the detective work, let's get a quick briefing on our primary subject. Your skin. It's so much more than just a wrapper, you know? It's a super dynamic organ. It's a shield, it's a thermostat, and it's even a vitamin D factory all rolled into one. It's a massive player in your body's daily operations. So let's get right to it. Our investigation starts now. We're going to treat the skin like a map that's just filled with clues about what's really going on inside your body. You know, any good detective follows a pretty simple two-step process, right? First, you ask the right questions, and then you examine the physical evidence. And guess what? That's exactly our plan here today. First things first, we've got the interrogation. The health interview. Getting the backstory is almost always the fastest way to crack a case and figure out what we're really dealing with. So think of these as your key lines of questioning. You got to ask yourself, have I noticed any new spots or any old ones that are changing? What about any rashes or maybe some itching, bruising, or sores that just won't go away? And what about your daily routine? Like what products are you using? Do you use sunscreen regularly? And a big one, is there any family history of skin cancer? Seriously, every single answer is a critical clue in this investigation. Okay, so once we've got that background info, it's time to move on to phase 2, examining the physical evidence. Let's see what the skin itself has to say. And our detective kit for this is actually pretty simple. All you need are your eyes and your hands. The first technique is inspection. That's just a fancy word for looking closely for clues, like changes in color and texture. The second is palpation, which means using touch to check for things like temperature, moisture, and just how the skin feels and moves. Okay, check this out. This is a perfect example of how to tell the difference between a totally normal clue and a potential red flag. On the left, we've got age spots. Pretty common, right? They're basically the story of a life lived in the sun. But on the right, that's something different. Those are called petechia. They're these tiny reddish-purple spots that can be a sign of tiny bleeds happening just under the skin. Now that is a clue that definitely needs a closer look. All right, let's talk about a major clue you can see with your own eyes. Jaundice. This is when the skin takes on a distinct yellowish color. It's caused by a buildup of something called bilirubin, which is basically a waste product from old red blood cells. When you see this, it's often a pretty direct signal that something might be wrong with the liver. And wow, you can really see the difference here, can't you? That color change is dramatic. A key thing to note is that jaundice is often easiest to spot in the whites of the eyes. You can also see it on the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet, which is a really important tip for being able to detect it in people with darker skin tones. Okay, here are 2 more really critical color clues to keep on your radar. First is pallor, which is just an unusual paleness. That could be a sign of something like anemia or a circulation problem. Then there's cyanosis, which is a bluish tint to the skin. This one's often more urgent because it usually means there's a lack of oxygen in the tissues. For both of these, the lips, inside the mouth, and the nail beds are some of the key places to look. Okay, listen up, because this next part is maybe the most critical section in our entire detective handbook. When we're talking about suspicious spots on the skin, there is a simple but incredibly powerful checklist that every single one of us needs to master. It's called the ABCDE rule. It's a super easy way to remember the key danger signs for any spot on your skin. It's especially important for spotting melanoma, which is a really serious type of skin cancer. Honestly, memorizing this is one of the best things you can do for your health. So, let's break it down letter by letter. First up, A is for asymmetry. Here's what you do. Imagine drawing a line right down the middle of a mole. Do the two halves look like mirror images? If one side looks totally different from the other, that's your first red flag. Next, let's move on to B, and B is for border. A normal happy mole usually has a nice, smooth, even border. The warning sign here is a border that's irregular. Maybe it's jagged or blurred or kind of scalloped. That's what you're looking for. All right, C is for color. Most harmless moles are just one solid color, usually a single shade of brown.
The danger sign is when you see a bunch of different colors in one spot. We're talking multiple shades of brown, tan, or black, or even splotches of red, white, or blue. That's a big clue. Next up is D for diameter. The classic rule of thumb here is the size of a pencil eraser. That's about 6 millimeters. Now, it's true some melanomas can be smaller, but really any spot that's bigger than a pencil eraser is something you should definitely get checked out. And finally, we have E for evolving. And you know what? This might be the most important letter of them all. Evolving just means changing. Is the spot growing? Is its shape or color changing? Has it started to itch or bleed? Any kind of change over weeks or months is often the #1 sign that something might be wrong. It is a major, major red flag. So here's the bottom line, the main takeaway. If you find a spot on your skin that checks 2 or more of those ABCDE boxes, the risk that it could be a melanoma is pretty significant. And at that point, your job as a skin detective is done. It's time to hand the case over to a professional and get it checked out by a doctor. Look, knowing what to look for is half the battle, for sure. But the other half is prevention. Because a really good detective doesn't just solve crimes, right? They stop them from ever happening in the first place. So, step 1 in prevention is knowing your own personal risk factors. What's your history with sun exposure? Do you have a personal or family history of melanoma? Do you have 50 or more moles? What about red or light-colored hair? All of these things can put you at a higher risk. Just knowing where you stand is a huge step in staying vigilant. And with that in mind, here is your super simple 3-step protection plan. Number 1, apply a broad-spectrum sunscreen. Make sure it's SPF 30 or higher. 2, wear protective clothing and a wide-brimmed hat. And 3, try to avoid the sun when it's strongest, which is usually between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And that's our case file for today. But remember, being a skin detective, well, it's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing investigation. It's all about paying attention day in and day out. So now that you have the handbook, the only real question is, what clues are you going to look for tomorrow?